Hello everyone, welcome to Apti Plus Academy for Civil Services. A special video on Fortnight current affairs. We'll be looking into 10 important news that was relevant for the entire fortnight. This is Fortnight 1 for the month of November. Every month we releases two fortnight. The first fortnight is released on second Sunday and the second fortnight is released on fourth Sunday. And the coverage of this fortnight include the Hindu, the Indian Express and the PIB. So talking about the topic list, the 10 most important news that is relevant for the entire fortnight. These are the list of the topic. You can pause this video, you can read out the content. We'll be discussing each and every topic one by one. And before I proceed with this session, if you are new to our channel, do not forget to subscribe Apti Plus Academy for Civil Services on YouTube. If you like this video, if you find this video informative and helpful, do not forget to press a like button. Starting the session with the first news, that is the draft National Credit Framework. The government has come up with the credit framework and how does it will work. Talking about the precise nature of this news, this can be relevant for the prelims examination and even you can use this in the mains part. So recently the Ministry of Education has unveiled the draft notification credit framework, and the framework aims to formulate a unified credit accumulations and transfer of general and vocational studies and from the school to higher education, as it is evident from the fact that the government is putting its best possible impetus on the skill training. तो उसी के कंसर्न में आप vocational studies को भी जो गवर्नमेंट की कोशिश है, and they're looking forward to increase and augment that part. The draft framework has been formulated under the UGC, that is Establishment and Operations of Academic Bank of the Credit, in the Higher Education Regulation. This was notified in July 2021, that is last year. So the complete rollout and the practical implementation has been finally there by the Ministry of Education, which was earlier known as Ministry of Human Resource Development. Now talking about the National Credit Framework, this is what actually is and this is how it will work. The National Credit Framework is an umbrella framework which call initially for skilling, reskilling, upskilling, accreditations and evaluation, encompassing the people in educational as well as skilling institution for the workforce. So the government put its endeavor to ensure that the mass population is being skilled, reskilled and upskilled. The government has developed the National Credit Framework to enable the integration of academic and vocational domain to ensure the flexibility and mobility between the two. So what it will be doing, it will be at the same time integrating the academic nature of the subject as well as incorporating the vocational domain to ensure that there is a national credit framework that is implemented. Now, NCRF will enable the student who have dropped out from the mainstream educations to enter the educational ecosystem. Now, there's Academic Bank of Credit. So the credit which is backed by the student will be there in the academic bank, and under the National Credit Framework, the school student will soon be able to learn the credit from the academic and non-academic activities, and this will be stored in the Academic Bank of Credit, which is also known as ABC. So if a question arises in the prelims examination about the ABC, you can have a precise idea and even you can mark the answer. So this is just like the higher education in the Ministry of Education Planning introduced the National Credit Framework. The framework aims to formulate a unified credit accumulations and transfer for the general and vocational skill from school to the higher educations. Now, what is the aim of this credit framework? This aims to formulate a unified credit accumulations and transfer. If you call about the general and vocational education, this is what it will be looking for from school to higher education, right? And it envisages that the new education policy, जो कि government ने last year release किया, this is NEP 2020, which call for a lot more changes that has to be there. And it called for making education system more holistic, effective, and putting emphasis on the integration of general education, vocational education, experimental learning, and make it more imperative to establish and formulate the national accumulations and transfer system. So a question can be asked in the new education policy in the current context in the mains examination, and it can also call for an analysis part of the government intervention in terms of revamping the education system in our country. Now, moving to the other news, that is ISRO Indigenous Next Generation Launch Vehicle. So according to the Indian Space Research Organization chairman, it is developing a next generation launch vehicle which will be future for the replacement of the operational system like PSLV. India is initially using PSLV, and even if you talk about The other vehicle there is GSLV, right? So these vehicles are operational in India, but if you talk about the PSLV, these are often dubbed as a trust workhouse and will have the entire into a one day. What is NGLV? The next generation launch vehicle will be a cost efficient three-stage reusable heavy lift vehicle with a payload capacity of 10 ton to the geostationary transfer orbit, which is also known as GTO, right? Now the LSLV, NGLV will be a semi-cryogenic propulsion with a booster state with a cheaper and efficient in manner. So a direct question can also be framed in the NGLV. What are the advantages that India will be looking forward with NGLV? It will be features like simple, robust design that will allow bulk manufacturing, modularity in the system, subsystem, and minimal turnaround of the time. The potential user will be in the area of launching communications, चाहे deep sea missions की बात करें, future human spacing spacecraft या फिर cargo missions की बात करें. These are some of the things that will be the potential advantages after the launch of NGLV. Now, developing a business model, the ISRO chairman has said that it is important to develop a business model for the next generation launch vehicle, which actually it aims to serve, and this include the launching of the commercial satellite, the national mission that will ensure the industry participation from the start. Actually, government has also opened this sector in the triple P model that call for public-private partnership, and this partnership incorporate the state-of-art technology in the sector of space. Hampi Khajuraho on the list of G20 cultural track. As a part of India G20 Presidency, which is like December 2022, India will be overtaking the presidency of the G20, right? And this will end in November 2023. The government of India is planning to host 5 key focus meetings on the cultural track at Khajuraho, Bhubaneswar, Hampi, and Agra. So these cities has been chosen mainly known for their monument in the UNESCO World Heritage Site, which include Taj Mahal and Agra Fort, Hindu and Jain Temple of Khajuraho at Madhya Pradesh, Konark Temple in Odisha, and Hampi in Karnataka. Now, what is the planning of the meeting? The government has recently announced that there will be 215 meetings in all, spread across 55 cities covering most states during the G20 presidency. And the main summit will be held in September at India's, basically this is based in Delhi, that is the International Exhibition Convention Center. The cultural track of the G20 Secretariat will be set up in the Ministry of Culture to hire the professional agencies for research, documentations and coordination, and Government of India in the chairmanship during the G20 will focus on streamlining the Indian culture and promoting it to the global level. Now, what is the opportunity that India has when it is like presiding the G20 presidency? This can be also an important question for the mains examination, because if you talk about G20, there are a lot of questions for the prelims examination. Also, there is a question for mains. Also, there is question, but precisely talking about the part that India is looking forward in terms of cultural, you can say the promotions of culture. So G20 presidency provide for fantastic opportunities that India to shape a global agenda on the culture across multiple stream and engagement area, which include protections and restrictions of cultural property. Second is advancement of traditional cultural practices for sustainable living. Third is the promotion of cultural and creative industries for livelihood generations. And other is the preservation and dissemination of culture by leveraging the technology. So these are the things that India will look as an opportunity during the G20 presidency to promote the culture of India. Now, One Nation, One Fertilizer scheme, the Prime Minister has announced about this fertilizer scheme. There will be One Nation, One Fertilizer. So recently, the Prime Minister has inaugurated 600 Kisan Samridhi Kendra and One Nation, One Fertilizer schemes. The initiative by the Government of India aims to modernize the Indian agriculture. There's a lot variety of agriculture, even the fertilizer that is available. And there's a lot of confusion among the farmers, because even if you talk about the awareness that is lacking. So there's a uniformity in the fertilizer that India will be using, will be named as One Nation, One Fertilizer. The Kisan Samridhi crane would function as helping the center for the farmers. And if you talk about One Nation, One Fertilizer, the One Nation, One Fertilizer farmer is going to get rid of all kind of confusion and better manure that is going to be available to the farmer and increase their farm productions, right? And even at the same time, the same brand, same quality of urea will be sold in the country, and the name of the brand is called Bharat. So this is again precisely important for many other government examination. Now, Kisan Samridhi Kendra, the Prime Minister announced the introductions of more than 600 Kisan Samriddhi Kendra, and the Kisan Sammelan will prove to be very beneficial for the farmer. He said that the announcement will develop the fertilizer shops as a Kisan Samriddhi Kendra that will prove to be a big step forward for the farmers. Now, under this, more than 3 lakh fertilizer shops will be developed as a part of Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samriddhi Kendra. Every information will help to provide farmers at the centers. So definitely these Kendra or center will be helping the farmers to get the right knowledge about their fertilizers, and even if there's uniformity in the fertilizer, there will be a lot of confusion that was earlier arising will not be there. So confusion reduction will be there, and the potential use of fertilizer will be augmented for the farmers. The Supreme Court upheld the EWS quota, which was a long debated issue. After the clarification of the 5-bench constitutional judge of the Supreme Court, the final conclusion has come. Recently, the Supreme Court of India has upheld the 10% reservation for the EWS quota in the government jobs and educational institutions. Just to remind you, this is only for the government job and educational institution reservation. This is not for panchayat and not for elections, right? There will be no reservation in panchayat and election, but only the reservation will be there for the government job and educational institution to get admission for the higher education. The Supreme Court held that 103 amendment of the Constitution cannot be said as a breach of the basic structure of Indian Constitution, which was held in the Supreme Court judgment. केशव नंदा भारती की जो केस थी वर्सेस यूनियन ऑफ इंडिया, उसमें सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कैटेगोरिकली कहा था कि बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर से छेड़छाड़ नहीं की जानी चाहिए. Now, by permitting this, make special provisions in relations to the admissions to provide unaided educational institution. The constitutional bench of the Supreme Court on Monday had held that 3:2 मेजॉरिटी में ये डिसीजन आई है, जहाँ पे 2 जज ने डिसेंट किया है इस जजमेंट से, एंड इवन 3 जज हैज फेवर इट. They have favored the EWS quota, and this 2 judge has not favored. In this, the Supreme Court CJI is also included, but the majority always prevail in the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court has upholded the 10% reservation in the EWS quota. So this is again very important for the mains and prelims examination. Now, observation that was made by the Supreme Court. The apex court has noted that EWS quota did not violate the equality code of the Constitution as the basic structure of Indian Constitution, and the issues of exceeding 50% ceiling that I've talked about the Kesav Nanda Bharti case, the majority said that it will not apply to EWS reservation because there's a specific reservation which is given to the marginalized community in our society, which include scheduled caste, scheduled tribe and OBC. इनके लिए जो रिजर्वेशन है उसमें कोई छेड़छाड़ नहीं की जाएगी. There's a special category of reservation that is provided under the EWS quota. Right? So the 40 petition challenging the 103 Constitutional Amendment Act was introduced at a 10% reservation in the public employment educational institutions above the existing limit of 50% reservation. Now the center has defended the EWS quota, asserting that it does not violate the basic structure of Indian Constitution. Now about the EWS quota, the government has brought the EWS quota in 2019 to provide reservations in the job and higher education for economically weaker section of the society, which mostly include the students from the general community, because there is already a procedures and structure for the reservation for the marginalized community in our society. The 10% reservation applies to only those which are not covered under the 50% reservation that is specifically given to SC, ST and OBC, right? Basically for the social and economic backward classes. The Constitutional 103 Amendment Act passed by the Parliament enable both the central government as well as the state government to provide reservation under the EWS quota, right? Now, what is Constitution 103 Amendment of 2019? It called for amending Article 15 and Article 16 in the Indian Constitution. If you talk about Article 15, 6 was inserted and Article 16, 6 subclause was inserted, which allow for reservation of economically backward in the unreserved category. It was enacted to promote the welfare of the poor that is not covered under the 50% of the reservation. and it enabled both the center and state government to provide the reservation. Since अगर बात करें employment की, these are the subject. Employment and education is a central subject, right? And in both is in the concurrent list. So both the state government as well as the central government has a power to formulate the rule with this regard. Ballistic missile defense interceptor. This is what India has developed and something which called for a lot more advancement in the defense. So recently the DRDO, that is Defense Research Development Organization, has successfully conducted the maiden flight test of Phase 2 Ballistic Missiles Defense System, which is also known as BMD. This is Interceptor AD1, very important for the competitive examination. The flight test was conducted from APJ Abdul Kalam Island off coastal Odisha. Now, what is AD1 missile interceptor? AD1, a long-range interceptor missile designed for both low and exo-atmospheric and indo-atmospheric interceptions, will call for a long-range ballistic missiles in aircraft. Right. So this is the first features about the AD1. It is propelled by two-stage. This is again an important point to note. This is a two-stage motor which is equipped with indigenously developed control system, navigations guided by algorithm that is precisely with the vehicles to the target. Now AD1 is a unique type of interceptor that will advance technology and will be available for the few nations in the world. Now इंडिया की अगर BDM प्रोग्राम की बात करें, दिस एक्चुअली स्टार्टेड पोस्ट कारगिल वॉर जो 1999 में हुई, उसके बाद इंडिया ने ballistic missile defense system developed की. This was a program which was launched to counter the Pakistan expanding missile arsenal. And the goal was that the program is to provide an air defense shield against all kind of holistic missiles, including the nuclear one. The phase 1 of the missile is said to have been completed towards the end of 2010 and consists of the advanced air defense system and air defense based on Prithvi missile. The second phase, according to the sources, focuses on development of anti-ballistic defense system like US Threater high altitude area defense, which can neutralize intermediate range ballistic missiles. Now, central double fertilizer subsidy. Basically, government of India was looking forward to augment the farm's basically income by doubling the farm income was a priority. Now, Central has doubled the fertilizer subsidy to aid the farmer. Even it will help the farmers a lot. Considering the huge increase in the price of the fertilizers amid the global market and even the war that is ongoing between Russia and Ukraine, the central government has recently decided to double the fertilizer price subsidy for the Rabi crop. The Union Cabinet has approved the subsidy of total amount of 51,875 crore rupees, which include nitrogen, phosphorus, potash, and sulfur for phosphatic and potassium fertilizer that is ongoing for the Rabi season. Now, what is the budget estimation? Although this budget estimation is not important for the examination purpose, but at least you should know that the total budget allocation was 21,000 crore rupees for the nutrient based subsidy, and this amount has been doubled. The central has revised the subsidy keeping in the increasing basically the price बढ़ रही है because of the global supply chain disruptions. That is the reason, was the main aim behind the government to augment it. And this is the highest subsidy so far that is provided by the government of India. Reason for the fertilizer price hike: the commercial price of the fertilizers has doubled due to Russia-Ukraine conflict and the logistic issues due to the pandemic. Center has decided to double the subsidy and component 2 as well. Now the government measures और क्या government ने measures ली है to ensure that the fertilizer subsidies is provided. The center has taken measures to increase the productions of urea in India. While the requirement was 350 kg ton, the productions in the country was 250 ton. So there's a mismatch in the productions and the supply and the requirement. The 4 new plant is coming up for the nano urea that will replace the use of urea slowly. The country has enough stock of fertilizers. This season will report about the farmers choosing to buy fertilizers from out of the proportions. The center has said that the move will help the farmer and it will enable the suitability of all P&K fertilizers that will improve the affordability for the support price sectors for the season of 2023 and 2022. Mathura Vrindavan to become the carbon neutral destinations. The state government is looking forward for coming up with an initiative that will call for a more carbon neutralized initiatives. So according to the Uttar Pradesh government, the Mathura and Vrindavan is one of the largest pilgrimage center which aims to have the net zero emissions to the tourist destination by 2041. Now, draft redevelopment plan developed की गई है by the Uttar Pradesh government. They have come up with a plan where all 252 water bodies and 24 forest area will be revised. According to the plan, the bridge region annual pilgrimage tourist footfall is expected to multiply from the current level of 2.3 crore to 6 crore by 2041. Keeping this in mind, the area need to have eco-friendly development area which will aid for the local economy and does not have an adverse impact on our environment. Now talking about net zero carbon emissions, how this will be achieved, what are the important things that government is doing to attain the net zero emissions. The greenhouse gases must be reduced to zero as early as possible, with remaining emission being reabsorbed from the atmosphere by ocean, forest and intenses. This will facilitate the Mathura Vrindavan that plans to divide the entire region into 4 clusters, each containing 2 of them in 8 cities. Now there will be use of electric vehicles to ensure that there is less population in the region. So to start with, as part of the development plan, government ने ये कोशिश की है कि जो ब्रज की region है वहाँ पे pilgrimages को खास करके वृंदावन और कृष्ण जन्मभूमि की जो region है where there will be no vehicles that will be allowed. Only option is to use electric vehicles. So instead of like only using electric vehicle for the public transport would be allowed in the area, and this plans to 3 to 5 charging points for the electric vehicles in Mathura Vrindavan for each in the 2 of the key towns. Now early warning system for the entire world. This is what the World Meteorological Organization has taken as an initiative to ensure that there is early warning system which is helping across the globe. So to take the leap forward, the initiative that is backed by India for the Coalitions for Disaster Resilience Infrastructure, last year climate meeting में World Meteorological Organization ने 5-year plan unveiled किया that how the warning system can be there to save the lives and minimize the destruction that is ongoing because of the climate disasters. Now there will be a multiple hazardous warning system. The multiple hazardous warning system is an integrated system which allow people to know the hazardous weather on the climate events that way inform how government communications and individual act. So if you talk about the multi-hazard warning system, this includes some of the important components. The first is the risk knowledge. The second is the observations. Third is communications, and fourth is response. And this should be a people-centric to empower and threaten those who are actually threatened by the hazardous act of insufficient time will call for appropriate manner and even build a partnership across the relevant sector. The World Meteorological Statement said that the global emissions on adaptation has found that spending 800 million on the early warning system could avoid losses up to 3 to 60 billion year every year. So this is to ensure that जो losses हो सकती हैं उसे save की जाए. Now, infrastructure and capacity building, the program launched by the UN Secretary General envisaged for the investment of 3.1 billion between now and till 2027. This aims to create an infrastructure and build capacity in the early warning system. As per the World Meteorological Statement, the Global Commissions on Adaptation has found spending 800 million on early warning system to avoid the losses of 3 to 60 billion every year. Nearly half of the countries in the world, most of them are least developed country in a small island that dedicatedly require an early warning system to protect their citizen and even to protect their infrastructure development. Now, India first private launch vehicle all set for a maiden flight. This is Vikram. According to the Hyderabad-based startup Skyroot Aerospace, India's first privately developed rocket that is named as Vikram-S is set to launch for the suborbital mission with 3 payloads. This will be the maiden missile from the Skyroot Aerospace, which is known as Prarambh, which means the beginning or starting. So the carrying the 2 Indian satellite with 1 foreign custom payload. So 2 will be there for the national. So just to tell you what are the number of satellite that will be carrying, 2 Indian satellite and 1 international satellite, right? So this will be launched from the Indian Space Research Organization payload at Sriharikota. And the mission of the Skyroot is to become India's first private sector to launch the rocket into space and heading towards a new era of space sector which was opened in 2020 to facilitate the private sector participation. So this is a classical example where public-private partnership has been opened in the space sector, and this will augment and even call for more state-of-art technology. Now about Vikram-S rocket. Vikram-S rocket is a single stage suboptimal launch vehicle which would be carrying out 3 cluster payload, and it will help the test to validate the majority of technology in the Vikram series of the launch vehicle. The Chandrayaan said the Chandana and this said that the sky route could build a Vikram-S rocket mission that will have a short time because of the invaluable support system that ISRO and InSpace is the commercial wing of the ISRO that is operating, and this stand for Indian Space Research Promotions and Authorization Centers. Now for the private satellite, ISRO's heaviest launch vehicle Mark 3 will be launched, and there's already 36 OneWeb satellite was launched named as India Bharti is a stakeholder, and the agency will be launching another fleet of 36 satellite for the company. Other than that, the space agency will also be launched with a 4 satellite that will be made by the student. So this is how Government of India is also promoting the innovations at the school level so that the children are motivated towards working in future for the space sectors. Now there's a fun stat. This is the Space Kids, a Chennai-based aerospace startup that will fly for the fun set. 2.5 kg की payload के साथ developed की गई है by the student of India, US, Singapore, and Indonesia is a sub-optical flight on board Vikram-S. So this is again an important point you can take a note of for prelims and for many other government examination. So this was all about for the FCA for this month. This is FCA 1. We have a lot more other initiatives for you like daily news and editorial analysis. IASGYAN स्टेट की मैगजीन है जो हमारे वेबसाइट से आप डाउनलोड कर सकते हैं. FCA is there, PIB monthly compilation is there, MPR, gist of Yojana and Kurukshetra. All this initiative you can find in the playlist section, and these initiative will help you to sail through the journey of civil services. If you have any other concern, you can let me know. I'll be more than happy to assist you. For time being, I'm signing off. Thank you so much for watching this video.